Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for some of you, and assalamu alaikum. Whether you're you're in the East Coast or it's in the evening at Istanbul, we welcome you to Syrian Community Network's virtual benefit. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. We're honored that you have tuned in to support the Syrian Community Network's virtual benefit. As you know, with the recent Biden decision to let in more refugees, we are here to seek your support so we can be prepared to welcome our new arrivals and our new families. And we want to tell you what we have been up to for this past year. So many of you have been so supportive, and from the bottom of our hearts, thank you, thank you, thank you. You've supported us in so many ways, whether it's through donations or through mentoring a family or volunteering your hours. We really appreciate all of the time that you give to vulnerable families. Today, we have an exciting program for you. We have all the way from Istanbul, our friend, CNN international correspondent, Arwa Damon, and our host for the event is poet and rapper Omar Offendum. You will hear from them soon, but first, we want to take time to thank you and to thank our sponsors who have supported us in this event. So our first sponsors, Rahma Worldwide, Nubani Distributors, Oxfam America, Inner City Muslim Action Network, or better known as Iman, Atlas Consumer Law, Azad Asset Management, MPAC, ICNA Relief Chicago, CNA Accounting, and Iman Fund. But we want to hear from one of our sponsors. Mr. Ali Jindi is here with us from Oxfam America, and he wants to share a few words on why Oxfam America continues to support the Syrian Community Network, and we want to thank him for his continued support.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning, good afternoon, and thank you, Suzanne, for inviting me to join your event. It's a pleasure for me to join you and to keep our support to Syrian Community Network. Actually, we are so proud of the work you are doing to support the Syrian refugee communities in United States, and your services is highly appreciated by all the people. And I think it is just the start, and now we will have more work to come. You have your work on advocacy, not only serving the community themselves, which is great. Also, there are many advocacy opportunities that needs to be done, from advocating for having more Syrian refugees coming to United States, from allowing the families to bring their relatives to the United States. So now it is not the start. We expect the work of Syrian Community Network will be expanding more and will be more important in the coming period, especially receiving refugees in the resettlement program. Now, the Biden administration is more receptive to refugees, and they are
and everyone at Oxfam America. Omar Offendum is a Syrian American rapper.
Our Orthodox friends. It is a pleasure to be here. It is an honor to be here, and it is most definitely a responsibility to be here. Now, I say it's a pleasure because I always love getting the opportunity to speak to my Syrian American community all across the globe. It is an honor to be here on behalf of SCN, an organization that you're going to learn a lot about over the course of this next hour. And it is one that I was just telling the incredible folks who are at the helm of it is so very necessary, especially now. You know, it's been a decade since the crisis in Syria unfolded, and they had the foresight to start this organization early on to make sure that we were able to receive and to help the families who have been coming since then. And so it is a responsibility to be here, not just because I'm Syrian or American, but because I'm a human being who believes in equality and justice for all people, full stop. That's what drives me in my work, and that's why I'm so proud to be here today with SCN and with all of you. So once again, I have to say, salam. Of course, that means peace to everybody watching. So SCN, it is a refugee and immigrant support organization dedicated to building community and to addressing the ever-evolving needs of families. Born out of the Syrian refugee crisis, SCN was founded with the purpose of easing the transition of newly arrived refugees as they acclimate to life in the United States. Now, a lot of people have the impression that when a refugee gets that quote-unquote golden ticket, that all is well and that their future is bright. But the truth is, it is a very, very long, hard road ahead of them. And that's where an organization like SCN comes in, providing the services that it provides that allow the family to get on its feet, job training, educational skills, all kinds of really, really important programming that has grown from Chicago to San Diego to Arizona, and hopefully more chapters all across the country. This is, in fact, the Syrian Community Network dedicated to building community. So, and if that speaks to you, I want you to know that we are looking for your support to support refugee families to continue the important work that SCN has started together by donating to www.syriancommunitynetwork.org. Or of course, you can donate to Facebook directly or YouTube. You can also text the number 44321 on your phone and write the letters SCN on your phone to receive a link to donate. It's that easy. Now, if you want to support youth programming that includes after-school programming and summer programming, know that just these past few months, SCN staff volunteers clocked in over 1,500 hours of tutoring. So if you're not able to donate directly with your own money, know that your volunteer efforts are much needed and much appreciated. So to all of the young people, especially listening and watching, we could certainly use your help in that regard. Now, SCN does a lot of advocacy work as well to highlight the stories of refugees to our lawmakers, the immigration and citizenship classes that they offer to prepare families for citizenship exams are extremely important, as of course are the social services and so much more. So please, please remember to donate. Once again, you can go to www.syriancommunitynetwork.org or simply text the number 44321 on your phone and write in the letters SCN to receive a link. Now, I wanted to open up this program with a very special poem written well over 100 years ago. It's called To Young Americans of Syrian Origin, and it was written by Khalil Gibran. Many of us know him as the famous Lebanese-American poet, who some say is the third highest-selling poet in world history. An incredible feat indeed. But we have to remember at the time that he had arrived, it was still called Greater Syria. This idea of Greater Syria was still very much alive and well, and that's where the title of this poem came from. And many of the words resonate so deeply with what is being said today, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. So he said, I believe in you, and I believe in your destiny. I believe that you are contributors to this new civilization. I believe that you have inherited from your forefathers an ancient dream, a song, a prophecy which you can proudly lay as a gift of gratitude upon the lap of America. I believe that you can say to the founders of this great nation, here I am, a youth, a young tree whose roots were plucked from the hills of Lebanon or Syria, yet I am deeply rooted here and I would be fruitful. And I believe that you can say to Abraham Lincoln, the blessed Jesus of Nazareth touched your lips when you spoke and guided your hand when you wrote, and I shall uphold all that you have said and all that you have written. I believe that even as your fathers came to this land to produce riches, you were born to produce riches by intelligence and labor. I believe that it is in you to be good citizens. And what is it to be a good citizen? It is to acknowledge the other person's rights before asserting your own, but always to be conscious of your own. It is to be free in word and deed, but it is also to know that your freedom is subject to the other person's freedom. It is to produce by labor and only by labor, and to spend less than you have produced so that your children may not be dependent upon the state for support when you are no more. It is to stand before the towers of New York and Washington, Chicago and San Francisco, saying in your hearts, I am the descendant of a people who built Damascus and Byblos and Saida and Sur and Antakya, and I'll add Halab and Homs and Idlib and Raqqa and all the beautiful cities of Syria to that list. And I am here to build with you and with a will. It is to be proud of being an American, but it is also to be proud that your fathers and mothers came from a land upon which God laid his gracious hand and raised his messengers. Young Americans of Syrian origin, I believe in you. Thank you, Khalil Gibran. May he rest in peace. Now, it is my honor to introduce Maya Atassi, SCN's Director of Operations. Maya is the daughter of Syrian immigrants. She joined SCN at its infancy in 2015 and has been instrumental to growing the organization and its programs. Hello, Maya.
Thank you, Omar, for that introduction, and thank you to those who are spending a part of their Sunday with us in support of SCN. Now I would just like to take a few minutes to tell you more about SCN and what our dedicated staff have been up to over the past year as they have worked hard to continue serving the community during the COVID-19 pandemic. Just trying to share my screen, just one second. SCN is a refugee and immigrant support organization that builds community and serves families by addressing their evolving needs. Our services fall under the following 4 categories: case management, education, immigration legal services, and advocacy. First, our case management team facilitates access to public benefits, helping families navigate social safety net programs such as food, medical, and cash assistance, wade through the complex healthcare systems, as well as file and manage claims for unemployment insurance. Since March of 2020, the case management team has helped the families we serve secure over $2 million in unemployment benefits, along with food and medical care for over 100 households. Next, our education team provides services in 3 areas: youth programming, adult education services, and education case management. Due to COVID, our services shifted to being offered remotely. Last fall, our after-school program became the homework room, where 60 students have received 1,300 hours of individualized tutoring throughout the course of the school year. The pandemic also exacerbated the need to offer families support related to school communication through our education case management, such as parent-teacher conferencing, navigating the IEP process, as well as school registration. SDN's newest program is Immigration Legal Services. The program helps individuals apply for their green card, citizenship, travel documents, and work authorization. Since March of 2020, we have helped over 40 individuals apply for U.S. citizenship. We also piloted the first of 2 cohorts for online citizenship class with over 50 participants and hosted webinars on a variety of immigration-related topics, such as the process for family reunification, as well as the requirements for medical exemption from the civics portion of the naturalization interview. Our final program, and the common thread throughout all of our services, is advocacy. All of SDN staff see themselves as advocates for the families we serve in each of our daily interactions with them. On a wider scale, SDN advocates at the city, state, and national level for the U.S. to be a more welcoming place for immigrants and refugees by hosting press conferences, meeting with elected officials, and conducting cultural competency trainings. Right now, we are encouraging those of you watching at home to contact your senators and representatives to put pressure on President Biden to keep his promise of welcoming 62,500 refugees this fiscal year, and to sign the presidential determination that will make it official. The administration has set a deadline of May 15th for that to happen, so let's make sure that promise is kept. And let's make sure SDN can continue to support families in the ways we've highlighted today. Please consider donating in support of our programming. Text SDN to 44321 to donate, or you can donate on our website, syriancommunitynetwork.org/SDN/donate. And now I'll toss it back to Omar.
Good morning, everyone. We're having a little bit of a technical difficulty, but I'm just gonna take over for Omar at this moment in time while he jumps back on. So we are super excited today, not only to have Omar as one of our special guests, but of course, one of our amazing community members, Arwa Damon, who is a senior international correspondent with CNN. She is a Syrian American journalist who has been working with CNN and is now based in Istanbul for a number of years. From 2003, she covered the Middle East as a freelance journalist before joining CNN in 2006. She is an award-winning journalist and also one of the network's Iraq specialists. Damon has covered extensively the bloody conflict in Syria, as well as the deepening humanitarian crisis, which is spread across the region. Some of her recent reports from the country have focused on the effect of devastating barrel bomb air raids on the civilian population. And she is also president and founder of INARA, a humanitarian organization that provides medical treatment to war-impacted children who are unable to access life-altering medical care. So we would like to welcome Arwa to the stream, and hopefully Omar can join us soon. Arwa, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Hi, everybody. And again, as we've been hearing before, thank you all for sharing your time with us. I have to say, throughout the course of my work, both at CNN and through my charity, INARA, I always find it very heartening when people are willing to give their time to listen either to stories coming from the field or stories of individuals who are trying to help those that have lost everything, try to rebuild as best they can their lives. So I started as a journalist in 2003 in Baghdad in Iraq, a few weeks before the war started. Prior to that, I had been working in New York. And, when I graduated college, I had no real idea of what I wanted to do. I had a degree in biology, a degree in French. I had a minor in international affairs. And a lot of people ask me, how did you end up where you are at CNN? And I like to say, well, I sold toilets and towels, which is to say that I was in New York working for a Turkish textile company, i.e. selling towels, when 9/11 happened. And my mom's Syrian, my dad's American. I grew up in a very cross-cultural household. I spoke both Arabic and English from pretty much the day I was born. In fact, my family says I wasn't even able to differentiate between both languages until about the age of 3. And after 9/11, really watching this East-West divide growing, I felt this inexplicable need, especially as the war in Iraq was building up, to transform myself into a journalist and try to, I guess, explain people to each other. Because let's face it, I look very American. When I was in the States, when I would speak to my American friends about what was happening in the Middle East, I felt as if they would pay a bit more attention because they could relate to me, and that somehow made this conflict that was happening all the way over there, whatever it was at the time, a bit more relatable. And I grew up in a very Arab household. We were more kibbeh than hamburgers, and I loved it. And so with that, I got myself to Baghdad in a very unconventional way, kind of scrapping my way through, begging people to hire me. CNN didn't want to hire me at first, so I ended up taking a job with a Lebanese company that was selling flak jackets, bulletproof vests, and porta-johns, portable toilets, to the U.S. military, so that I could just knock on CNN's door and grab a cup of coffee with them. Which is all to say that sometimes you got to dig a tunnel if a door won't open. But reporting from the Middle East, with the war in Iraq, but then especially over the last decade with everything that's been happening in Syria, has been extremely difficult, because what we've noticed is that viewer apathy kicks in very, very quickly, especially when it came to Syria. For some reason, it is the most documented war of our time. And yet, despite the reporting, despite the sacrifices that were being made on the ground by, young Syrian activists who would literally crawl on their bellies to get that one shot of a tank firing into a civilian neighborhood to prove to the world, one atrocity that was taking place, it never really served to sort of shift the direction that Syria was going on. And for those of us reporting from Syria, it was a very bitter lesson, because it wasn't that we were giving voice to the voiceless when it came to Syria. Syrians had a voice. It's just that voice didn't matter. It didn't matter how many bodies were being pulled out of the rubble. It didn't matter how many children were killed, how many schools were bombed, how many hospitals were targeted. Welcome back.
I'm so sorry. We had some technical issues here. Please forgive me.
It happened.
Continue. Yeah, I don't know what the last question I was asked was, but please continue.
I kind of was just rambling. No, but basically, so the lessons, Syria were teaching us as journalists. And so what we ended up, realizing was that when it came to Syria in particular, because there were such bigger geopolitical plays and maneuvers that were happening, was that, the lives of the innocent were negated. And that realization very early on sort of shredded those of us that were trying to report on Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And, we would hear from our contacts on the ground, from, activists, why doesn't it matter? Why doesn't anyone care? And we were never able to answer that question. And eventually, the sad reality was that most of those voices, at least those that I knew in the early days, I mean, they're either dead or disappeared.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate completely. I know the amount of times I must have answered questions about Syria early on by saying, beneath all the political posturing, all the proxy wars, all the conspiracy theories, there's very real human suffering. And that's what I, as a Syrian American, I'm trying to really focus my attention on. But of course, that's not exactly what's going to get the most airplay, or it's not the sexiest soundbite, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, people get lost in the words.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about a bombing that happened, and you sort of have a visual of what that looks like, but a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't understand the way that, it sucks the oxygen out of the room, how time just stands still, how as, walls collapse on top of you, it feels like it's happening in slow motion. We talk about fear of bombings. We talk about people fleeing.
Mm-hmm.
What does that really mean? What does that really look like? And that's what we try to depict in the reporting. But unless you've lived it, you don't know. You don't know what it's like to be a parent who can't keep their kids safe. You don't know what it's like to have your kid tell you, I'm scared, I'm cold, I'm hungry. And you cannot tell them that they're safe, that they're going to be warm, and that they're going to get food. And that's why people were leaving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I can't imagine year after year what that does to a child, the kind of trauma, that experiencing that. And then, being out of school, in addition to that, being completely, hopeless as far as what next steps you can take. It's mind boggling. I mean, I know that you said as a female reporter, you always had more access to interview families that were affected by the war. Is that something you could elaborate on a little bit for us?
Yeah, there's this big fascination with, female war correspondents. And, I've always found it to be a benefit. I mean, yes, of course, in certain situations, you need to be hyper vigilant about, where you are. And everyone has different experiences.
Of course.
But by and large, what I found is that we end up existing in this sort of weird gray space. We kind of almost become, I guess, asexual, for lack of a better way to put it. So I can spend all day, with the men, sitting around, chatting with fighters, going out on, whatever missions they end up going out on, or just wandering the streets with them. But then at night, or in certain situations, I can go in and I can talk to the women. And this is something that oftentimes my male colleagues can't do. And that just adds an entirely different dimension to the reporting and to the understanding of what a population is going through. And the other advantage, I think, is that, men are, generally speaking, I feel more likely to open up and be willing to be vulnerable to a woman. And women are more comfortable, especially when it comes to addressing certain topics, speaking to a woman, even if my cameraman is male.
Right.
I just really feel as if there's more barriers that come down for us.
That's really amazing. I just wanted to let folks know who are just tuning in that we're live with Arwa Damon in support of the Syrian Community Network. And of course, for folks who would like to donate, you can join the amazing group of people who've already done so by going to www.syriancommunitynetwork.easy. Now, Arwa, I know you started an organization yourself that has been helping young people. Can you tell us a little bit about?
The previous to Syria kicking off, I had done it who'd been injured in war in Iraq, who had been unable to access the medical care that they needed. And it was one story in particular that really stuck out in my mind, but it was this little kid named Yusuf, who I met in 2007. He was 5 years old, and for reasons unknown, gunmen, masked men, had poured gasoline on his head and set him on fire when he was playing in front of his home.
Oh my goodness.
And his father had gone, door to door, ministry to ministry, organization to organization, trying to get his kid help, and no luck. And so he randomly ends up at the CNN Baghdad bureau. And I remember looking at Yusuf, and he was sitting in the bureau's kitchen eating rice, only he couldn't open his mouth to put a spoonful of rice into it because his face had just turned into this mask of just hardened rivers of scar tissue. And so he would kind of like try to shove the rice in between his lips. And then his hands were burnt right here, both of them, because he'd been trying to put the flames out on his face going like this. And there was nothing that, CNN could do that we could do bar telling his story. And at that time, there was a lot of apathy vis-a-vis what was happening in Iraq. But suffice to say that, we put the story out there and the response to it was extraordinary. I mean, people all over the world wanted to help this little boy. And so eventually the family ends up being picked up by an organization in Los Angeles. CNN viewers donated money to them. They're in America. Fast forward, almost 13 years later, 14 years later. And, Yusuf doesn't remember the attack. Like, he knows what happened to him, but when he was younger, he would speak about it and he would remember it. But as he's grown up over the years, it's almost as if that defining moment of his life's narrative changed from being the actual act of violence itself to how people assisted him afterwards, to how, a community actually came together and supported him and his family through this. And so, with that in mind and recognizing that over the years, I reported tons of other kids' stories, and sometimes they got help, sometimes they didn't. None had the same impact as Yusuf's. And for those that weren't getting help, and a lot of journalists do this, by the way, we would figure it out for them because we have contacts here and there, scrap money from your friends, and you figure it out for these families. And so 2012, with everything that's going on in Syria, being a journalist, it wasn't enough because the other need that I was seeing there was so great. And so why not do all of this under the umbrella of an organization? And hence, Inara was born, and we focus on taking on cases that other organizations don't. So filling in the gaps in access to medical care.
Beautiful, beautiful. Can I just ask personally, I'm curious about the name, where you came up with the name?
So Inara in Arabic means ray of light. And so it's the shortening of the International Network for Aid, Relief, and Assistance.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But we chose Inara first and then found the words to make it make sense. We had certain words that we knew had to go into our name. But we wanted something that when shortened had a meaning.
Well, it's a beautiful name. I encourage everybody who is watching to also look up Inara. I follow you on Instagram, and I also follow the Inara page. Very inspiring, the stories that you get to see of these young people whose lives have been, changed forever. And, I know a lot of people who do this sort of work say that the families, really touch their lives. And, they often say things like, they helped me more than I was able to really help them. Is that a sentiment that you share?
Oh, 100%. I mean, just in the sense that, you know, psychologically speaking, I think I was in a pretty dark place prior to getting Inara going. And being able to do something, watching the way these kids transform, you literally see a child. So a lot of the kids, when they come to us, and a lot of the kids that I meet in the war zones, they've been through so much and they can't verbalize it. They're children. And so you see it really in their face, their children, you know, into bed. That is safe space. You know, your neighbors are people who you know. When you've gone through a war, especially one as vicious as the one in Syria was, all of that you knew to be real is ripped away from you. You have nothing. You don't have someone who you can call and rely on because it's all been taken away, and you're a stranger in a strange land with compounded trauma, with still no idea how, given everything that you've risked to get to that point, you're going to be able to promise your children that things are going to be okay. And the only way to be able to begin to build that back is through building a community. And it's also important because when a community that you used to trust, so what people had back, you know, back home in Syria or wherever it is that they're from, when that gets taken away the way it is, you know, you also have an element of fear when it comes to trusting a community around you. And so it's so multi-level because it's about rebuilding, you know, the new family's trust in their surroundings. It's about assuring them that, you know what, you've made it this far and you're not alone anymore, because they can't make it on their own. It's just, it's the reality. It's too much. It's too much to navigate. It's too foreign. And they've been through so much. Like, we don't even begin to appreciate the compounded traumas of coming out of a war zone.
And then spending time in a refugee camp, and then
and then all of it. I mean, and you know, and the thing is, you know, for them to succeed, you know, in a place like the United States, you know, they need the support system to navigate a lot of things.
Absolutely.
I mean, so much of it is foreign that we don't even think about.
You know, I mean, it brings to mind a story, a recently resettled family that my sister was helping in Colorado. That just the simple act of, you know, just getting a driver's license and then getting a parking ticket and then having to go to court because they weren't able to read the signs properly, and then getting another ticket at the courthouse because they parked wrong. Like, just something like that. That's a small example of, you know, obviously a whole slew of issues that could come up. So again, just another reminder of how even those who want to just volunteer their time to help a lot of these families through tutoring and through you know, job training and things like that, every little bit helps. And of course, those who would like to donate, 44321 on your cell phones. Type the letters SCN. You know, the Biden administration, Arwa, had you know, pledged to increase the numbers. How do you feel about that pledge, and are you hopeful?
Wow, hope is a tricky emotion, isn't it? It's a bit of a deceptive beast. I mean, you can't live without it, and yet when it gets taken away from you, it's pretty crushing. I mean, look, it's great that they're going to reopen. Are the numbers where they need to be? No. Is the U.S. anywhere close to actually shouldering what should be its burden of refugees? No. I think we need to be pushing for more. I think we need to be asking of the administration for more. I mean, the U.S. has never, historically speaking, actually shouldered, you know, the majority of the burden of the refugee population. And I think it's, you know, it's tricky.
Of course, it's tricky. I mean, on that note, just be respectful of your time. If you had one more message you wanted to share with our viewers today, what might it be?
It would be, a lot of the times when we talk about, these issues and these crises, it seems overwhelming. And I think a lot of people feel helpless in terms of what can I do to help? But the thing is that can't be an excuse for anyone anymore, because there's so much that you can do. You all have highlighted here. You can donate your time. You can donate your expertise. You can just donate yourself and be a support system for somebody who needs it. Or if you can afford it, you know what? You can donate your money. And no amount is too small. No act of kindness is too insignificant, because it's only when we collectively start doing all of this are we going to end up building, something better than what we have today. Because I don't know about all of you, but the world as it exists today is not good enough. We are not doing well enough by each other. And I know we can do better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Arwa, for that so much. It reminds me of my immigration story. My family had immigrated in the early 80s as a result of a lot of the turmoil that had happened in Syria. My father definitely had, like many men from his generation, from Hama, the town that he was from, had a level of PTSD that I don't think I fully appreciated growing up. But that said, community was extremely important to him. Helping those who needed the help was extremely important to him. And so literally the second that we became citizens and that he could do it, he helped family members and friends come to the United States and settle here. And also helped by sending, aid back to family members back home, which ultimately got him blacklisted there. And, that sort of thing. And it just, that legacy of his, that legacy of giving, even though, subhanAllah, he ended up passing away just 1 year after we became citizens. And I know that struggle for him, what that meant for him. And, the fact that it was just me and him there when he had passed. I was 12 years old. And it was like this very formative thing. What you had mentioned about the young person, I forget his name, who, turned that tragedy of the burn into more about the story of the survival and all the people who helped him. That was something that I could relate to on my own, personal level. You actually happened to be saying it as soon as I could hear my 5-year-old son walk in the house. So this is like a generational story. And I just think about, had my father not had, just obviously the bravery to get up and get out and to take that leap across the ocean, but then also the understanding of paying it forward and how necessary that is in terms of building community, and knowing he had this opportunity. He was the one who got that golden ticket, and he made sure that he could give as much of it as he could to others.
And he raised you to be that way. I mean, that's what's so important. I mean, this is something that I keep kind of, harping on about, but it's about, it's changing someone's narrative, right? Especially a child. A lot of these kids, they come out of it and their life is defined by evilty, cruelty, and violence. And if we're not there, this is the bigger we, to show them a world that is more defined by kindness and compassion and people reaching out to each other, what kind of people are they going to grow up to be? And so we do need to change their narrative, the same way that, your father had this community around him and he taught you to be the man that you are, and you're going to be passing that on, to your kids. I mean, that's why it's so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Arwa. I really, really appreciate your time and your sentiment. All the best with your work, both at CNN and with Inara. And thank you for doing all the work that you do for our community.
Well, we do have one question from an audience, and they were asking about, to Arwa, have you ever experienced a move as a child where you struggled, and what helped, and who was instrumental in helping you in your adjustment? So it's just a personal story of your childhood. Yeah, if you've had like times where you've moved, or you felt like you were the stranger in a new school, and how difficult it is for children to adjust.
Yeah. So I've actually been a stranger my entire life. Like I'm a foreigner everywhere. It wasn't easy in the beginning at all, especially, when I moved so I ended up moving to Morocco when I was 6, then I moved back to the States when I was 9, and then I moved to Turkey when I was 10. And that move to Turkey was pretty difficult because I went into a Turkish school. So I obviously didn't speak a lick of Turkish, and I was only taking the classes in English, but the kids all around me were, Turks, native Turkish speakers. Their English wasn't good enough, so they weren't going to kind of, have a big group conversation because, oh, this one girl doesn't speak Turkish, which is actually what a lot of, Syrian children are going through right now, probably in the United States. And so I spent a lot of time, I actually buried myself in the library in books. And then I quietly learned Turkish. And then, 3 years after I arrived, I literally apparently burst onto the scene with this like entirely different personality. But I had a core group of friends who kind of were sticking by me. I had my parents, obviously, we had the group of foreign kids on campus, but I'd have to say that I did a lot of it on my own. But that's also a lot of kind of who I am in terms of this attitude of, I'm going to figure this out by myself. But yeah, but I would say though, overall, moving around as a kid is amazing. Being exposed to different cultures, being exposed to those challenges early on. I guess the key thing is to ensure that, the outcome of the challenge is a positive lesson as opposed to a negative one.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, Arwa, it's been so great spending some time with you this afternoon. Thank you on behalf of the Syrian Community Network and all of the families watching. We really appreciate all that you've done and continue to do. And we wish you all the best in Istanbul and beyond.
My pleasure. And thank you all for everything you're doing. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, who's giving, whatever it is that, that you're giving, whether it's time or money. I mean, it means a lot to somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Arwa. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Forgot to also say hello to her cats. She, like many people in Istanbul, has many cats in her house that she loves having around. And she remembered, or she had remarked that if she dies and can be reincarnated, she wants to come back as an Istanbul cat because apparently they're very happy. That said, I just wanted to share another piece before we move on to the last segment of our program. But before I do that, one last time, I just want to remind our viewers, you can log on to www.syriancommunitynetwork.org. I believe it's right here. Or you can donate directly on Facebook or YouTube to the Syrian Community Network. And lastly, you can pick up your cell phone and text the number 44321 and type in the letters SCN to receive a link to donate. This discussion about my father and about the community building just brought up a song of mine that I wanted to share with you, but I'll share it in poem form. This is a piece called Close My Eyes, and it had essentially been a eulogy to my father, may he rest in peace, Abdul Latif al-Shaqaqi, who, like I said, immigrated with us in the early 80s, ended up passing away in 1994, and it took me almost several decades to finally put this song and this project out. If you'd like to watch the video, it's on YouTube, Omar Offendum, Close My Eyes. You can see footage of pictures of him and footage of me and my son. You might hear yelling in the background right now because that's how it is with a child who's 5. But that said, the piece is called Close My Eyes, and I dedicate it to anybody who's lost a loved one. And I also wanted to just extend a special welcome and thank you to all of the Syrian families who joined us recently resettled families in Chicago, in San Diego, in Arizona. نرحب بكم نحييكم المجتمع السوري الأمريكي يرحب بكم جميعا ونتمنى لكم الخير إن شاء الله دائما وأبدا وإن شاء الله بتقدروا تستقروا هون وتكونوا من ضمن المجتمع السوري الأمريكي ونحن كتير مبسوطين فيكم بوجودكم ونتمنى لكم الخير إن شاء الله. So this piece is called Close My Eyes. Now I bet you thought that I'd forget. I'll admit I've often tried. Ever since the day you left, I've been feeling lost inside, waiting here with bated breath. Patiently, I recollect, one foot in the grave, foolish step to take. Now, wait a sec, I heard about it all before. Read it in the ancient text messages delivered from the best of us to save the rest of us from grief, stress, and a weak chest, speechless, one tongue, two eardrums, so speak less. And yes, the meek blessed with inheriting this earth, but until then, I worry for children who perish first, carrying thirst, walking miles for polluted water, buried in turf, lost smiles in a slew of martyrs. Is this the type of life we're meant to be living where history's repeated, tragedies we're reliving, huh? These were the kinds of conversations that we used to have, but now that you're gone, I just speak to you in song and I close my eyes. You have a knack for showing up soon as I close my eyelids. The world is black, but sure enough, your luminance is shining. They say no man's an island, and to me, you are a continent, constantly reminding me to elevate my consciousness. Now, back when I was growing up, he told me to keep smiling, that no matter what the obstacle, nothing was impossible, timeless. Wisdom in your silence, a language all its own. Find a place your children's children love and go on and call it home. And plant roots. Watch your family tree grow to bear fruits. Can't let that pride in ye grow. Set aside your ego. In the eyes of people, we share truth. Clear through windows to your soul center. So find an equal whom you love being alone with to get you through this cold winter. The type of guidance you provided me was priceless. I can almost see you smiling while I write this at night. I just close my eyes. And I know grieving isn't easy, but the tears breed patience. Believing isn't easy, but the fears feed faith in that infinite uncertainty of certain situations. Recognize you're immortal. Your demise is but a portal to surprises unpredicted by the limits of a mind so finite that only in hindsight do we ever find what's right and what was wrong. And this is more than just a song. Sometimes your heart must skip a beat so you'll appreciate it more. And I keep calm and carry on. You want to knock on heaven's door? I'm not so sure. Brother, the line is very long and since is very dawn. Mankind has never been benevolent enough to get along, at least not on a global scale, so please begin at home. I pray we're not a total fail, but indeed the good die young. Hey, yo, deep inside, I know we'll be united very soon. That's why I say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To the one we belong and to the one we all return. Now, I would like to also just take a second to remind you one more time that you can donate to SyrianCommunityNetwork.org, and also want to just reiterate to all of the volunteers and all the staff of SCN in Chicago and San Diego and in Arizona and beyond. We are so, so grateful for the work that you are doing. This organization will soon become one of the most important Syrian American organizations in the country because the vision is to grow community, and that is absolutely what we need the most right now. To build and grow our network, to connect our network so that our young people can grow up proud of being Syrian and American, and to understand that their community has their back, to let the immigrants and the refugees know that we have their back as soon as they get here. And that no matter what it is that they need, we will be able to make sure that they get it, or at least do our best to make sure that they get it. And to push the administration, regardless if it's the Biden administration or the next one, to hold true to their word and to welcome as many refugee families as we can, immigrant families as we can, because we understand that that is ultimately what is going to make this country better. Immigrants are essential to making this country better. Now, that said, I also wanted to just give a special shout out to the SCN students who are part of the Zoom homework room, and of course to all of the volunteers and parents who are helping out our families in all of the cities that I'd mentioned earlier. And lastly, I would be remiss if I did not welcome back our most important executive director, Suzanne Akhras, for one last note.
Thank you, Omar, and thank you, Arwa, so much. I always love to see all of your songs and to hear your, spoken word. And I love when you go on Instagram, and I follow you religiously just because I really enjoy the your art, and you make us proud as Syrian Americans, as Arab Americans, as Muslim Americans, that we have someone at this caliber that brings so much awareness to every cause and every movement. So thank you so much, Omar, for being with us and for helping us in our virtual event. And thank you to Arwa. Again, I want to remind everyone to donate to SyrianCommunityNetwork.org. We are in our 20th day of Ramadan. It's amazing that how quickly this month has passed, and we're only halfway through our goal. And so we really need your help to support the organization, whether you believe in refugees coming to the United States, whether you are an immigrant yourself, whether you're a former refugee who's been here for a long time and has adjusted and integrated into society. This is our moment. We're going to hold the administration to its words that they said they will resettle more refugees this year and next year. So we're getting ready. We need your help to be able to increase our capacity, to be able to serve more children, to serve more families. One of the nicest programs that we have. We love all of our programs, obviously, but the cutest and the nicest is our after-school youth programming that's led by Emily Kane and Samira Al-Hamwi, and formerly Amanda Asali, who also helped grow the program. Just seeing the kids, their faces, having them smile, to be able to get that homework help. I, as an immigrant myself, I came to Chicago in 1982, and I remember being in a fog for the first 4 or 5 years in school, just never really getting what the teacher was talking about, what anybody was talking about, and let alone having to navigate gym class by itself. That's a struggle by itself. So for these children to have a community to turn to have someone to tutor them, to help them, to guide them, to love them, and show them all of this attention, I think is really important. I wish I had that as a child, and I did in some ways when we would go to the community center, to the mosque, to gatherings of larger Arab American communities. That felt very important to me, and so I wanted to replicate that in Syrian Community Network, so that these children have, from the very beginning, a support system. So we ask you, again, to stretch yourself a little bit, whether you can give $100, $50, $75, whatever you can do. Every dollar adds up. And as Arwa said, no amount is too little to give to an organization like ours that has been working tirelessly since 2015 to support new immigrants, new refugees coming in. And then last year, even Governor J.B. Pritzker recognized our work at one of his press conferences when he was giving a COVID update, highlighting our organization as stepping up quickly to adjust to the new COVID dynamics, that we had to turn all of our classes and all of our services virtual. So I'm going to remind you again to donate generously, and I want to bring up someone that we recently hired, Lauren West. She's our development and communications director. So if you've been receiving the new newsletters and all of our Instagram posts, this is Lauren's work. She's a genius. She's been a wonderful addition to our family. So I want to let Lauren thank our sponsors and then just kind of bring it home for all of us.
Yes, thank you so much, Suzanne. I am very, very excited to be part of the Syrian Community Network. I think that Omar and Arwa said it so beautifully, how important community is. And as Syrian Community Network, everyone who is part of SCN is part of our community, not just the clients, not just the people that we serve and work with, but everyone who donates, everyone who volunteers, everyone who shares about our mission and our programming, because we could not do it without you. And so that's why we wanted this campaign this year to be centered around caring for our community, because that's exactly how you can do so. And as Suzanne mentioned, just thinking of whatever that is that you can do, let it be a stretch for you this season, whether that's a monetary donation, your time, sharing some of our work. As everyone has mentioned, there's a lot going on with advocacy right now. So even just talking to your Congress members, your senators, your representatives, and your neighbors to make them more welcoming for our newcomers and our communities, we hope that you do so. And I would love to thank all of our amazing sponsors who helped make this happen. We have Rahma Worldwide, Nubani Distributors, Atlas Consumer Law, Inner City Muslim Action Network, or Iman, Oxfam America, Azad Asset Management, CNA Accounting, ICNA Relief Chicago, Iman Fund, and MPAC. We really could not have done this without you all, so thank you so much. And I hope that everyone can still donate today. As Suzanne has mentioned, we are doing this campaign through the end of Eid, and we hope that you can find some time to make that donation either today or soon. So from everyone who is part of today's program, we just want to wish you a happy weekend and a Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you so much. Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you to our staff, to Omar, to Arwa, to everyone, to Maya, to all of our board members. Thank you so much. Don't forget to donate. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.